Hello, this is an update in the topic of crack willow propagation. As you may notice, there is some change in this bucket because I've added 2 species just yesterday. Today it's the 14th day of the experiment, so 14 days have passed since I started this rooting experiment of the crack willow. So let's see what has changed. First of all, I've added 2 species just yesterday. This one is a giant redwood or giant sequoia, Latin name Sequoiadendron giganteum. So hopefully these branches are gonna root as well, taking the advantage of willow rooting hormones. The branch is just prepared similar way like the branches of the willow. So this is the giant sequoia. Okay, put it aside and I will show you the other species I've added. Well, this is a honeysuckle species. Very likely it is an amur honeysuckle, Lonicera amurensis. Lonicera maki, the proper name of it. But the idea is not certain, so let's say it's just a honeysuckle bush, honeysuckle or shrub honeysuckle, shrubby one, not a vine at all. It's prepared the same way as the willow cuttings. Fresh branch added just yesterday. I had to reduce the size of the crown, reduced number of leaves and twigs to prevent the branch from dying. Okay, at the moment I will put it aside and we'll see a random twig of a willow. The branch is alive, the buds are sprouting, the buds are shooting. Let's see the base. I'm not expecting any dramatic changes yet. It looks like this. No roots yet. It's just the 14th day of the experiment, so it was likely not to see any roots yet. Okay, I will put it back into the container filled with water. By the way, I have to tell you that the water is not changed. It's the same water that I added half a month ago. It just refilled itself based on the rainfall that we had. The rooting process is not very fast one in the case of these branches, these cuttings, because we had quite cold weather these days and the temperature is a significant factor that stimulates the rooting process. These honeysuckle branches are quite advanced as it comes to the leaves development, so I had to reduce the number of leaves to prevent them from dying, from drying out. And look at this Henomeles japonica, the Henomeles superba, these Japanese kings, the one I'm trying to root as well. These Japanese kings is still alive. That's a good sign. I'm not expecting to see any roots yet because it's too early, but it's still alive, so it's in good condition. Okay, I will be updating the topic in a few days or a couple of days.
The crack willow cuttings are back to the place where they can root in peace, and I'm gonna show you something interesting that I have noticed. This is an old lilac tree, and look at these, what is inside of this. These are tiny Corydalis solida seedlings that they have just started to grow inside of this lilac tree. So it's just like kind of interludium to the topic of rooting of a willow. Welcome back. This is the 21st day of the experiment of rooting willow, crack willow. The cuttings are in good health, still alive. Even this Lonicera honeysuckle is still in a good condition. Well, but it seems that some slugs got in. You can see, well, you can see the leaf damage caused by slugs. And here on the honeysuckle, some traces of slugs as well. But the willow is in good condition. You can see the leaves starting to grow. Okay, we'll see if there are some roots, if any. This is the willow cutting after 21 days, 21st day today of the experiment. And you can see here there is no traces of healing, neither roots. However, these white spots correspond to roots starting grow. So in these places, these white spots are the places where the roots will emerge. So it's a good sign that possibly this rooting process is to succeed, like this spot here is also a place where roots are about to grow. Well, okay, we'll see it later for the updates. This tiny slug, well, it's not exactly a slug, it's a snail. It was the cause of the damage in leaves. Well, ignore that my hand is so dirty. I was cutting pines today, and I got in touch with the pine sap, so it's hard to remove without heavy washing. Okay, so this tiny slug will be removed from the saplings, from the cuttings. These are Japanese maple cuttings that they were collected in dormancy season, when they were dormant, and they were kept in a cool, moist place. You can see that the buds are shooting, the buds are starting to grow. However, there are some traces of mold, and these ends, black ends, are rotten. They will have to be removed from this, just to leave the healthy part of the cutting. And I'm gonna take an advantage of the willow water, the water from rooting willow, to root this Japanese maple, Acer palmatum, as well. The Japanese maple cuttings are prepared for placing into water. They look like this. I will put them for one night into the water together with willow cuttings, and then I will place it in a separate container, because the one that I'm holding willow cuttings is too deep for these cute little maple cuttings. So let's put it all together, these maple cuttings at the side of the willow cuttings, into the container just for one night. Tomorrow I will remove them, because you can see that they almost have hidden themselves in this container. It's too deep, certainly. Okay. Today is the 22nd day of rooting willow cuttings, and the willow is starting to grow. You can see fresh leaves. Fresh leaves of willow. Honeysuckle is in quite good condition, but not every of the cuttings, because this one is fainted. Possibly this one will not survive, so we will remove it. It's like dying. I don't know what is the reason why this one behaves like this, but it is not likely that this one will grow. And Japanese Kins, hybrid Kins, is in quite a good condition. The Japanese maple cuttings I will put into a separate container today. They were overnight stored in the one together with willow, but now it's time to move them to a separate container, smaller one. The Japanese maple is put out of the container, and it will be placed in a separate one. The Japanese maple cuttings are placed into a separate container made of a recycled plastic bottle. And hopefully it will root as well as the willow is going to root.
the water level has to be restored because it dropped a little. That's fair enough. Today is the 1st of May, so it's 30 days since the experiment of rooting willow has been started. So let's see how it looks. The leaves are budding, starting to grow. We'll see roots of a random shoot, random branch. Well, looks pretty nice. These are roots that they are just starting to develop. 1 month, exactly 1 month after the experiment has been started. Okay, let's put it back into water gently, trying not to damage these new roots. The cutting is back into water, and let's see the other plants that they are rooting together with willow. The honeysuckle, the one here, is good alive, so I guess it will succeed, but I'm not going to check for roots of a honeysuckle today yet. Another one, the Japanese kins, Japanese fall kins or flowering kins, is good alive, so possibly it will succeed with rooting as well. And as it comes to the giant sequoia branches, they are alive. They started to grow. These bright green ends of the branch just here, this is a sign of new growth that has started, so it may root as well. Well, I'm not expecting any roots of this giant sequoia yet, so I'm not going to check for them. But there is some other thing I've noticed just today. Look here. This is a female flower of the crack willow. That means that the willow I'm trying to root, it is actually a female clone. That's a good notice or a good sign. Well, there are some more flowers of the willow, like here, but it's exactly the same female flower because when only female flowers are on this particular clone, that means every inflorescence will be a female one. Even looking through the plastic container, you can see some roots starting to grow. So we can call it that we have succeeded, but in fact, to plant these cuttings, I'm gonna wait some more until the roots get bigger, because they still can get bigger, and the chance that the new saplings will survive will be greater when the roots are bigger.
Okay, that's all for the 1st of May. I mean the 30th, the 30 days after we have started the experiment. Welcome back. Today is the 13th of May, so it's 43 days after the experiment of rooting willow cuttings has started. Well, willow is in a good condition, growing well. The cuttings already have leaves already. Some new twigs are growing. So let's check the roots. I will choose a random cutting like the one here, and we'll see if there are roots. And well, very nice. Let's call it a successful rooting of crack willow. Well, this cutting is ready to be planted because there are enough roots. There are enough roots to grow it well. Some leaves on, so we can call it a successful willow cuttings rooting, propagating willow from cuttings. Well, okay. I'm Bartosz Pacuła, broadcasting from the south of Poland, and this was a video about propagating willow, crack willow from cuttings. Subscribe to my channel if you wish. Okay, and thank you, and bye bye.